ones who master the translation process, and I'm so grateful to them that this is the moment to tell that, and I have such a great respect to their work. For me, it's a miracle that someone can come here and understand what I wrote maybe years ago in a similar way as a Spanish reader does. This is incomprehensible for me, and I want to state clearly that I am very, very grateful to the two of them, because they are really expert and skilled translators. We have had several. In one occasion, there was a cultural issue. I was speaking about Bellido Dolfos. Bellido Dolfos is one who killed a Spanish king, and he's some kind of the symbol of treason. And it's something which is not, you are not familiar with Bellido Dolfos, I guess. Only if you are experts in Spanish history, you will know who Bellido Dolfos was. And they suggested me alternatives, because also in the English culture, there have been examples or characters that could resemble Bellido Dolfos. But I finally decided to leave Bellido Dolfos, because why not? The reader must discover who Bellido Dolfos was, even if he was so indigno. He was not. He doesn't deserve to be remembered, perhaps. But I don't know. It's not my business. I thought of Bellido Dolfos, and I wanted Bellido Dolfos to remain in the poem.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we had a. It comes back, I suppose, to one of the issues that Peter was raising this morning about, would the editor, looking at this, say, well, who is this person? Do you need to add a gloss or a footnote? And our feeling that, well, we've got some choices here. One is, do we find an equivalent? Also, if we're going to send this poem to an American magazine, do we find an American equivalent? In which do we have two different versions, depending on the kind of the context it's going to be read in, or do we leave it as it is and say, well, the reader's got an obligation to find out who this character is?
Yes. It's a never-ending process, because if you send to, I don't know, an Indonesian review, you will have to find someone equivalent in the Indonesian culture, which is rather an issue.
If I may respond just very briefly, thank you for that. I think it's very interesting to hear all that, simply because to enter into translation, especially of poetry, already is to sort of enter into a kind of debate or a discussion about what is necessary, appropriate, what is interesting, or what is authentic. And then to then have the added dimension of having two translators, I mean, it's very interesting to hear that you have this supplementary debate. So thank you for that.
Okay, are there any last minute questions? Just one down here, and then I think after that we need to wrap up, won't we? Ed, we have the microphone right down the front. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm curious about your background as an industrial engineer. If you could say something about that process or switch or disruption in your life, and anything about how, if at all, the industrial engineering background influences your poetry, and if in the translating team that there's an architect and an opera director there who also bring that part of their background to play.
Okay, thank you. I remember once speaking to Hugo Mujica, who's an Argentinian poet, rather well known. I said to him something, and he said that I was right. I said that poetry was going to be saved by those who come from out of the poetry. I don't know how to explain it. Not poetry written by, with all my respects, by philosophers or philologists. I don't know. I think poetry needs people from other cultures, other knowledges, other life experiences, which is my case. This is a good explanation, because it seems as if I was right. So it's a perfect explanation. That's very important. I began to write because when I got married, I wanted to give a present to my future wife, and I didn't know what to do or what to give her. So I bought a ring, but if I have had more money, the diamond would have been greater. And that was not the issue from my point of view, so I decided to write several sonnets which were awful, terrible, but I discovered that I enjoyed greatly writing. So that's how everything began until today. So I think having studied science and engineering and thermodynamics and electricity and all those wonderful things, I think that enrich your writing. That's my personal point of view. So I have included, not in these poems, but in some cases, the vocabulary I use comes from science. And I think it's something that this type of approach makes poetry more diverse, I think. And I would like economists and architects and, I don't know, shop assistants and company owners, etc., to write poetry, because we would have new glances, new points of view, and politicians as well, why not? And that would be interesting. We have an excess of poetry written by philosophers, philologists, and so on, with all my respect. That's what I think.
Thank you. And with regard to the theme of today, exile, did you initially or even now feel partially in exile from your background?
Francisco Brines said that we are necessarily exiled from somewhere, from something, from the past or from... So, as I said before, we have so many reasons to be thankful that we must include joyful things and cheerful things and playful things in our poetry, but also we have to remember those who aren't with us, those who are suffering, disease, pain, risk, depression, etc. And all this builds up some kind of a mixture which is inside yourself, and this comes to the poem naturally. In some cases you look as if you were the most cheerful person in the world, and you have to be number one in being cheerful. And in some cases you have to be sad because you feel like that, as is Vallejo's case. You're going to speak now about Vallejo. He seemed to have on himself or inside himself the whole suffering of the world. So in matter of suffering, he's number one. No one has suffered as Vallejo did. So this is a good example. I think poets must experience as no other people can, because you have to have some kind of a special sensibility in order to suffer or to be happy or to be angry or to be fed up as no one before and no one after. And that's the reason to read poetry. One of the reasons to read poetry, I think. Thank you.
I think we'd better finish there. I'd like to thank Alvaro, Stephen and Claudio for his quiet support as well. So if you'd like to put your hands together and give them a thank you.